Welcome to Friday Live, number 62. This is a good time. I just noticed the first thing I want to do before the good time thing. The shirt is orange, not as faded as it seems in my picture here. I am my particular version of person colored, and the two shades are actually in real life not quite as similar as what I'm looking at on the screen, which is kind of disturbing, and I wish I had another shirt on. Okay, I said it was a good time for something. We're in the middle of Anyone Got a Match by Max Schulman. And we just completed chapter 13 in a marathon reading of chapters 12 and 13 because 13 is huge. It's the biggest chapter in the book, and it includes the middle of the book, so it's square in the center. And you may have noticed that in that chapter, more locations and combinations of characters in each were included than in any other chapter. So it's really a loaded batch. It's a big deal. I draw your attention to the conference between Professor Linden of Arts and his class, or the students in his social studies anthropology class, which is, if you're not really paying attention, seems like a big swerve. It's not. And I call your attention as well to the logic employed by Boo and Ira in their deliberations about their relationship. Okay, so we proceed to chapter 14, just one chapter today, no more marathons, and we continue. Chapter 14. At 20 minutes past 11 the following morning, Polly and Ira Shapian were in Ira's suite at the Stonewall Jackson Hotel. Polly was unpacking the bags she had brought from California. Ira stood with his back to her, staring silently out the window. As Polly hung dresses in the closet and stashed lingerie in drawers, she paused occasionally to look at her husband, but he did not look back. His eyes remained stonily on the window. After several minutes, she muttered a brief expletive, flung a panty girdle into a corner, and said, "Listen, Ira, I really didn't expect you to leap with joy when I got here, but do you have to look so stricken?" Ira turned. "I'm sorry, Polly," he said, attempting a smile. "It's just that I've got things on my mind." She gave his arm a light, tentative touch. "You're miffed because I let the twins join the Marines without asking you. That's it, isn't it?" "No, Polly, not at all honest." "Yes, that's it, and I apologize. It was a brassy, bitchy thing for me to do, but I had to, don't you see?" Her grip tightened on his arm. "These kids need to be shaped up and fast. So who's going to do it? Soft old dad? Spongy old mom? No, Ira, this is a job for an iron-assed drill instructor with a heart to match. And believe me, the job will get done. Those kids have great stuff inside of them in spite of our best efforts to lord it over. It's there. And the Marines will find it, I promise you." Ira patted his wife's hand. I know. You did the right thing, and I'm not a bit sore. So why are you walking around with a face like a basset hound?" "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Smile. Your wife is here. If you can't smile, spit. Do something." "Polly, it's only that I'm working day and night on the TV show, and suddenly you arrive in this hick town, and I don't have time to entertain you, and I'm afraid you'll get bored into a coma." "Rest easy, chum. I don't expect you to entertain me, and I don't intend to be bored. I've got friends in Owens Mill, too, remember? In fact, I sent a note to Virgil Tatum a couple of days ago to let him know I'd be here." "Virgil, good. I also wrote Boo." "Boo," he said. He was actually feeling the blood drain from his head. "Yes, Boo. You remember? We knew her during the war. Southern Belle type, portico, thoroughbred horses, 18th century furniture, high cheekbones, everything antebellum except the legs. Haven't you seen her since you've been here?" "The phone is ringing," he said gratefully, and snatched it up. "Hello," he said. "Oh, hi, Virgil. Look, I didn't even know about it myself till last night. Yes, she's right here. Just a minute." "Virgil," said Polly joyfully into the phone. "How are you?" "Never mind the small talk," said Virgil. "Just one question. Are you still beautiful?" "Oh, yes," answered Polly. "Withered and wrinkled also, but beautiful. Definitely." That's all I wanted to know, said Virgil. Now, in reply to your note inquiring whether we might have lunch sometime, let me state that we are going to have lunch every single day, starting today. In addition, on every evening when your greasy grind husband finds himself occupied with his television show, we are going to have dinner. And after dinner, well, my dear, who knows? Perhaps we can provide one another with a little southern comfort. You are a dirty old man, said Polly. You're thinking of my father, he answered. However, I'm trying. Now, what time shall I pick you up for lunch? 1 hour. I'll be there. See now, said Polly to Ira as she hung up the telephone. I'm going to be royally entertained while I'm here, so you tends to your business and don't worry about me languishing alone in a hotel room. Fine fellow, Virgil, said Ira. A lamb, agreed Polly, which is precisely his problem. A little less lamb and a little more toro, he would have it well and truly made. Poor Virgil. All right, Polly, I better get over to the factory. Listen, she said, touching him again lightly, almost shyly. I'm not pressuring you, understand, but I didn't really come flying out here to parley with the natives. So if you can spare some time from your job, I'll do my best. Well, will you have your secretary phone the hotel about 5 and let me know how it looks for tonight? Sure. Oh, wait a minute. I might not be here. If she doesn't reach me at the hotel, tell her to try Boo's house. Boo? Said Ira and felt his blood plummet again. I thought I'd call and invite myself over for 10 this afternoon. Ira, what's wrong? Or for tea this afternoon. Ira, what's wrong? Nothing. Got to run. Run he did, down the stairs, out of the hotel, across the street, into a drugstore, into a phone booth. Rapidly he dialed Boo's number. Boo, listen. I know, dear. I just now opened Polly's letter. She's going to call you in a few minutes. She wants to come to tea this afternoon. I shall invite her. You shall? Yes, Ira, it is fated. Last night we had a vexing riddle to fathom. Now is it answered for us. Could you be a little less oblique? Don't you understand? We can't see each other again. Not ever. Oh, said Ira. Now I understand. Except one thing. Why can't we see each other again? A sign has been given us, my darling. Acknowledge it and praise what was. Oblique again. God damn it, will you talk plain? Sorry, Boo. It's all right, Dark Angel. My heart breaks with yours, but we must do what we must. So you're going to have Polly to tea? Yes. Boo, you're crazy. What will happen if Polly sees Gabriel? She's got an eye like a chicken hawk, that wife of mine. She'll figure it out in 2 seconds. Oh dear, said Boo. So if you're going to have Polly to tea, and obviously you are, I must, don't you see? No, I don't. But never mind. Just listen. When Polly is in your house, make damn sure Gabriel is away, far away. I can't send him out, Ira. The boy has a heavy cold. All right, then, lock him in his room. Lock him tight and keep him there. Yes, dear. You're sure you've got to have Polly to tea? Ira, sweet, blind Ira, a higher power has provided us with an answer. Oh, Jesus Christ. Perhaps, said Boo softly. Boo, listen. Goodbye, Ira. Goodbye, dear soul and flesh. Goodbye. For an hour, Polly and Boo had been sitting in Boo's 18th century drawing room, drinking Lapsang Souchong out of Sèvres cups, nibbling delicately at ladylike cookies arranged on a Dresden plate. The conversation had been steady and easy. They covered the old days, the new days, the days in between. They touched on life and art and domestic matters. The talk flowed placidly with an occasional ripple of pleasant laughter. Yet to Polly's chicken hawk eye and Doberman ear, it was clear that beneath Boo's composure there lay a tightly controlled but unmistakable stratum of hysteria. What I think, Polly told herself sagely and silently, is that this lady is underscrewed. I know that feeling. But not a blink, not a twitch, not the tiniest shrillness perturbed the serenity of the hour. Like a mill run, it trickled gently by, until all of a sudden an apparition filled the doorway, a gangly young man with wrinkled pajamas, a floppy robe, tangled hair of shining black, smoldering dark eyes, and a nose grotesquely red and rheumy. Hey, Ma, said Gabriel indignantly, what's the idea of locking me in my bedroom? Whatever can you be talking about? Replied Boo, tittering nervously, trying to interpose her body between Gabriel and Polly without actually making a standing broad jump. I didn't lock you in your bedroom. You did too, Gabriel insisted. I heard you turn the key. Nonsense, dear. You were dreaming, said Boo. How'd you get out? Any fool who can't pick a simple lock. We'll talk about it later, said Boo, taking a firm hold on his arm. Back in bed with you now. You know what the doctor said. Gabriel stood rooted, staring at Polly. Who's this lady? I think I know her. Polly stared back. She did not think she knew Gabriel. She knew him. One look into those burning black Armenian eyes, and she was sure beyond the doubting of it. Ira's son, she said to herself, and there was a hollowness in her belly and a banging under her breastbone, and her color mounted, and there was a tightness in her throat. Lips clung together as though sealed. Her head swiveled slowly from Gabriel to Boo, and there she saw a blush as deep as her own, an aimless flexing and unflexing of fingers. This is Mrs. Shapien, Gabriel, said Boo hollowly. Yeah, he cried with a broad smile. Sure, that's who it is. Ira Shapien's wife. She was in the picture you used to have by your bed. Does anybody smell something burning in the kitchen? Said Boo, desperately avoiding Polly's stare. I'm sure there's something burning in the kitchen, she cried and fled from the room. Mrs. Shapien, said Gabriel. Polly turned her face back to him. Excuse me, Mrs. Shapien, he said, but you're spilling your tea in your lap. Oh, thank God, said Polly. I was afraid it was something else. Gabriel looked at her curiously for a moment, then laughed out loud and deep. That was funny what you just said, he told her. Yeah, said Polly. You're kind of a funny lady, continued Gabriel. Thanks. Good looking, too, he said. I mean, I don't mean you're pretty or glamorous or like that, but you've got character in your face. Uh-huh, said Polly. Are you smart? No, said Polly. Oh, come on, don't be modest. I'll bet anything you've got a sensational IQ. Young man, said Polly, rising, I am, without question, the stupidest woman you will ever meet. Now, if you'll be kind enough to say goodbye to your mother... Wait! Gabriel spread his arms and barred her way. There's something I want to ask you. Yes? Actually, there's something I want to tell you. Yes? Do you have any idea what my IQ is? No. Well, I'm a little embarrassed to give you the actual figure. Let me put it this way. In the entire history of intelligence measurement, and I include Europe as well as America, there have only been 2 scores higher than mine. I am very happy for you, said Polly. Gabriel frowned. Now, why do you suppose I went and told you that? He asked, honestly puzzled. I don't know, Gabriel. Why don't you go back to bed and figure it out? I have to call a cab. A cab, he cried. I won't hear of it. I'll drive you home. You'll do no such thing, said Boo, returning to the room. She was composed now, or nearly so. The small spot of crimson remained high on each cheek, but her limbs were still and her voice was firm. Gabriel, you will march right to bed and stay there. I will drive Mrs. Shapien home. No, I'll get a cab, said Polly. You will not, said Gabriel vehemently to Polly. And to Boo he said, Honest, Ma, I feel fine now. No fever or anything. I'll take Mrs. Shapien home. Gabriel, no, said Boo. But he was already rushing from the room. I'll be dressed in a minute, Mrs. Shapien, he called as he disappeared. Strong-minded boy, said Polly. Yes, said Boo. How old? About 18? That's right, 18. Uh-huh, said Polly. Is there a cigarette in that box? Polly, stop turning your head away. Look at me. What for? We have to talk, honestly, openly, woman to woman. Who says so? Will you look at me? Cried Boo. I know you know about Gabriel. You knew the minute you saw him. So what do we do now? Pretend there is no Gabriel? Pretend I never did you this great, unforgivable wrong? That is exactly what we do, declared Polly, facing Boo squarely. I don't know whether there's a statute of limitations on adultery, but if there isn't, there should be. Gabriel happened 18 years ago. I sure as hell don't intend to start making waves at this late date. You mean you are able to forgive me? I mean it doesn't signify anymore. And what about Ira? Can you forgive him too? Wrath suddenly kindled in Polly's eyes. Ira is my business, she said. You're quite right, she spat. You're quite right, said Boo contritely. I'm sorry. Me too, said Polly, all anger gone. Excuse me for snapping at you, but it's a plain fact. Ira is my business. I have been, God for help me, in the Ira business for more than 20 years. It's not what you call a fun business, but on the other hand, it's the only business I know, and I don't propose to close up shop now on account of something Ira did back in his impetuous youth. You are a woman of great wisdom, said Boo sincerely. I am a woman, period. Sure, I can be big about what happened 18 years ago. But if I should find out that you and Ira are still shacking up, well, I don't know exactly what I'd do. Nothing out of a Noel Coward comedy, I promise you. Are you saying you suspect that Ira and I are still lovers? I suspect nothing, and that's one of the reasons I've stayed married. I simply take it as an article of faith that Ira is true to me. I know now he had a fling with you, but he came home, didn't he? And possibly he's taken an occasional jump on one of those eager young starlets who infest Hollywood. I doubt it, but maybe he did. So what? What's it got to do with me? All I need to know is that Ira comes home. He always has. I believe he always will. I see. What you don't know won't hurt you. That's one way to put it. Here's another. Marriage is a very fragile structure, and the foundation stone is called trust. Chip away at the foundation, and the whole thing comes tumbling down. Is, in your opinion, then, a wife should see no evil? As long as she possibly can, yes. There is, of course, a breaking point. It's no good holding a husband at the cost of your own self-respect. You truly are wise, Polly, said Boo with admiration. I suppose it's not possible for us to see one another again? You suppose right, Boo. So goodbye, and thanks for the tea, and tell the kid with the runny nose I'm ready to go home. I'm here, said Gabriel, appearing fully dressed in the doorway. Is that how you think of me, Mrs. Shapian, as a kid with a runny nose? I'm sorry, Gabriel, said Polly. I meant no offense. He nodded. My car is right in front, he said. Polly went outdoors with him, got into a low-slung, handmade sports car. For a time, Gabriel drove in silence. Then, sadly, he said, But that is your opinion of me, isn't it? Just a kid with a runny nose. Polly groaned. Her back was already overloaded with bundles of trauma. What she particularly did not need at this moment was to take on the added burden of an adolescent's funk. Gabriel, she said patiently, you're a very nice boy, and I'm sure in the fullness of time your nose will stop running. Boy, he said bitterly. You call me boy. You call me kid. Never mind that I've got the third highest IQ in all history. To you, I'm just a boy, a kid. Gabriel, why should it matter what I think of you? Why should it matter? He shouted wildly. Are you blind? Can't you see? See what? It happens the minute I met you. One look and I knew. Oh God, how happy I was. Do you know that I've been trying to find a mate for years and years? And for years and years, I've been striking out. I kept thinking there was something wrong with me, something missing. Face it, I told myself. When a man has an intellect like yours, he's bound to be deficient in other areas. Face it, you are an emotional inadequate. Only I never quite believed it. I couldn't stop feeling that when the right person came along, this dormant thing inside me would all of a sudden blaze into life. And I was right. I saw you and wham, it happened. There and then, wham, zowie, vaboom. Gabriel, said Polly, enunciating slowly and carefully, trying to contain a horror that sprouted and spread. Tell me you're not telling me what you seem to be telling me. But I am. Sure, it sounds crazy, but it's true. It happens the second we met. It's happening right now. All I have to do is look at you and I get this weird, tight, constricted feeling in my gut. Maybe your pants are buttons to your vest, said Polly. You are very funny, he said somberly. So laugh. You are very funny, he continued. You are very witty and intelligent, and you are not too bad looking, and for the first time in my life, I feel I have found a woman with whom I can communicate on every level, cerebral, social, and sexual. Stop the car, yelled Polly. Stop the car this minute, you nasty snot-nosed kid. Polly, listen to me, he wailed and jammed the accelerator pedal to the floor. What do you mean, Polly? I am Mrs. Shapian, and don't you forget it. The car was careening at 80 miles an hour, but Polly's voice, honed by outrage, cut the wind like a knife. Slow down. Slow down immediately. Do you hear me? Yes, ma'am, he said, biting his lip. He slowed to 30 miles an hour. Now pull over to the curb, Polly ordered. Please, Mrs. Shapian, he begs, don't get out. It's not the way you think it is. It better not be, said Polly with a shudder. Good God, cradle robbing was infamous enough, but this was cradle robbing come incest. Exactly how incest applied to this situation, she was too distraught to reason out. Probably not at all, if one were to get technical. But this was not the time, nor had Polly the inclination to explore dialectics. Stop the car and let me out, she said. Now. Mrs. Shapian, said Gabriel humbly. Mrs. Shapian, please, ma'am, let me talk for just a couple of minutes. I'll drive slow, and I won't talk more than 2 minutes, I promise. Then, if you still want me to stop the car, on my honor, I will. Looking at the guilelessness of Gabriel's face, at his liquid, vulnerable, dark eyes, Polly suddenly got the crazy feeling that it was one of her own twin sons beseeching her, and as it always happened with her own boys, she could not find it in herself to say no. Oh, all right, she told Gabriel. You've got 2 minutes, and drive slowly. Thank you, Mrs. Shapian. You now have 1 minute and 50 seconds. Mrs. Shapian, I know you are a fine, decent woman who is old enough to be my mother, and I know you are married to a fine, decent man who is old enough to be my father. Polly caught her breath sharply. And, continued Gabriel, I'm sure you love Mr. Shapian, and he loves you, and I surely don't mean to suggest that you and I should have what they call an affair. Hallelujah, said Polly, dabbing her forehead. Even if you were to stop loving Mr. Shapian for some reason, or if he were to stop loving you for some reason, I would not insult you by suggesting that you and I should have what they call an affair. Good, 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 said Polly. I would, however, ask you to marry me if you stopped loving Mr. Shapian or he stopped loving you. That tears it, said Polly. Stop the car. Please, ma'am, I still have almost a minute. I would, as I say, ask you to marry me, which may sound strange to you. Oh, wonder strange, said Polly. Not really, he replied, but when you consider my IQ, many people have been called geniuses in the course of history, and although there is much disagreement about who was and who was not, 2 men are accepted by almost everybody, Shakespeare and John Stuart Mill. Both of these men, Mrs. Shapian, married women older than themselves. Don't you find that interesting? Not very, said Polly, and your time is up. Not quite. I just want to say that this in conclusion. I don't have any real hope that you will stop loving Mr. Shapian or vice versa. So I regard it as highly unlikely that you and I will ever be married. As for what they call an affair, that, of course, is out. So, Mrs. Shapian, though I love you deeply and forever. Oh, hush, said Polly crossly. It is true, deeply and forever. But I ask only this. Will you please be my friend? A sharp answer came to Polly's lips, but faded abruptly as she saw the plea in Gabriel's eyes. You are a very difficult boy, she said helplessly. He nodded. I know. The IQ of a Superman, the social grace of a Claude. You are the first woman who has ever wakened my heart. Damn you, Gabriel, said Polly as she felt the tears start down her cheeks. Shall I pull over to the curb? Polly resolutely blinked back her tears. No, drive me to the Stonewall Jackson Hotel, slowly, and shut up while I talk. You're not mad anymore? Eyes front, mouth closed, ears open, said Polly sternly. Gabriel, I cannot be your friend. To give you the simplest reason, I'll only be in Owens Mill 3 weeks, and then I go back to Hollywood. I've thought of that, said Gabriel. No problem. I can transfer to Caltech. In fact, they begged me to come out there after I published my paper on miniaturization. Do you know, Mrs. Shapian, that I can make a parabolic microphone that will fit on the head of a pin? I am delighted to hear it. Truly delighted, said Polly, because that solves everything. You stay home and make those cute teensy microphones and keep your mother company and go to Acanthus College, and someday soon, I guarantee it, you will meet a fine, intelligent girl your own age and get married and live happily ever after. A crooked, mirthless smile appeared on Gabriel's face. You were crying before, Mrs. Shapian, and for a minute I thought maybe you cared about me a little bit. But I'm wrong. I see that now. To you, I'm just the kid with the runny nose. In a minute, you might be the kid with the bloody nose, said Polly with a rush of annoyance. Doesn't that mighty IQ of yours work anywhere except on miniature microphones? Doesn't look like it. It sure doesn't. Gabriel, the answer is no. N-O. No, we cannot be friends. Not in Owens Mill, not in California, not anywhere, not ever. Do you hear? I hear, but I can't believe you would be so cruel to me. Here, thank God, is the Stonewall Jackson Hotel. Stop the car. Thank you for the ride. Goodbye. Forever. Mrs. Shapian, said Gabriel as she stepped out of the car, I will die if I don't see you again. Gabriel looked hard at him, clenched her teeth, whirled on her heel, and strode into the lobby. Any messages? She asked the desk clerk. No, ma'am, he answered, but Mr. Shapian is upstairs in the suite. He got here about 10 minutes ago. Aha, thought Polly. So he knows I've met Gabriel and the cat is out of the bag. So like a naughty kid who's earned a spanking, Ira has come home early to get it over with fast. Well, sorry, old man. I will not put a hairbrush to your swarthy bottom. You keep your guilt. I intend to keep my husband. Will you please send up a bottle of vodka and a bottle of vermouth, said Polly to the desk clerk. Mr. Shapian already ordered it, said the clerk. Splendid, smiled Polly, and still smiling went upstairs and entered the suite. Hello, darling, she said airily, and brushed Ira's cheek with her lips. Have a good day. Fine, said Ira, watching her closely. How about you? Oh, most enjoyable, she said, widening her smile. Does this old parched nose detect martinis in that pitcher? Want one? Asked Ira, his wary eyes steady on Polly. Love it. She poured a drink, handed it to her, and resumed his watchful waiting. She sipped her drink. Good, she pronounced. Well, it sure was pleasant to see Virgil again. He doesn't change much, does he? Not much. Does Boo, do you think? No, said Polly, looking innocently at Ira. Boo is Boo, beautiful, patrician, gracious. What did you think of Boo's son? Asked Ira. His eyes were locked with Polly's now, a duel of inscrutability. Gabriel, nice boy, very intelligent, courteous too. He drove me home. So you got a good look at him? Polly shrugged. I guess. Notice anything special? Only that he's a bright kid, she said casually. Well, Ira, what do you want to do tonight? I will tell you exactly, said Ira. For indeed he knew exactly. When a man has just been stabbed with the sneakiest weapon in the entire arsenal of female cutlery, to wit, forgiveness, there is only one possible course of action open to him. What I want to do tonight, said Ira, is to get slowly, carefully, thoroughly, painstakingly, scientifically, systematically, and heroically drunk. I'm with you, sweetheart, said Polly, and handed him her glass for a refill.